Life itself is a journey, and as we go further, there are obstacles likely to come our way. But what's most important is that we pick our feet right back up. And that brings us to our talk of the day, breaking boundaries. Hello and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Say Mohammed. And on today's episode, we'll be discussing on the future of Sharia-compliant banking, a new bank CEO's journey. And with me in the studio is none other than Ibrahim Lukman, the Chief Executive Officer of Halal Payment Service Limited. Hello, Ibrahim. Welcome on the show.
Hello.
Welcome. Right.
Uh,
So let's start with the first talk of the day, which is you giving us a bit of highlight of what drove you into the non-interest finance space. I mean, you needed, you got that oomph, like, oh, okay, you know what? I want to do this. I want to practice the ethical finance. So how did you start?
well, so the journey actually started based on my knowledge. My background is in technology, so I have over the 8 years experience before I started Islamic finance. So then, there were a lot of projects that used to come around. Oh, Ibrahim, want to do this, want to do that, build us a mobile app, a web app, tech solutions, and all like that. Being the fact that I have a venture studio. So, but unfortunately, in fact, I can say from starts of the types of project we used to get, more than 60% are non-Sharia compliant. So, and I can still remember that particular day, when the sound of the money, the price of the project, which you already had with the client. So I made a call to some of my scholars, asking them, "Can I take this project? He has a loan feature, and it's something I've been rejecting actually, based on my own personal ethics." So, but that particular day, the scholar now said to me, "Ibrahim, every time you used to come that you got a project, but you are not going to take it at the end of the day. Why not start something of our own? I mean, something that allows you to really do a great impact in this area, something that is going to be for the Muslims, that can bring the Muslims on it to make use of it." So that was in 2020. So we started then, bit by bit, we reach out to some commercial banks, but unfortunately, we couldn't find an existing bank that has infrastructure to power us. It was a very tedious one. So I started learning. I took some courses on EDX, on Coursera about Islamic finance, Takafu insurance, and other things. So that was how I actually got my interest.
Talking about Islamic finance or non-interest finance being for not just the Muslims but also the non-Muslims. So now how do you balance or how do you make your products offerings accessible to both Muslims and non-Muslims, especially in this part of the world? I mean, Nigeria is a place with diverse cultures and religion. So there is definitely need for that balance. How do you balance that?
Let me just say that word particularly. Well, I can say it's Bible financing, so because it's actually dated back to very long ages, right? So even before the birth of Jesus Christ, he or before the birth of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he has been for long, right? Old Testament, in fact, the Old Testament was inside it. So as far as I'm concerned, I have seen in different verses in the Bible, over 14 verses in the Bible, and only 7 in the Quran, where it was stated about negation of interest, right? So in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verse 19 to 20, in Leviticus 25, verse 37, Exodus 22 to chapter 22, verse 25, that you should not lend money to my followers and be like a money lender to them. where you take interest on it. So those are some of the things that we look together. And in the Quran, was stated specifically it started from Surah Al-Baqarah, that is Quran 2, verse 278, that you should not, take usra. So it is very clear that it is just not in the Quran, where the Sharia financing method are actually being stated. And now let us even look at what exactly is Sharia financing. So Sharia financing is seated on three principles. Number one is that it must not have anything to do with, when you're transacting, you must not have anything to do with interest, right? So, and number two is that your transaction, must not have ambiguous risk, like uncertainty. That is where you are algoro. So example of that is gambling. Third principle is it must be on equity and fairness, right? Whatever transactions I have with you must be on a very plain and transparent level, must be accountable for, must be very transparent. And equity means that, we are sharing profit, we are sharing loss on it. So it means it's very fair at the end of the day. So let's talk about interest. Fine, a lot of economists sit on interest. But when we look at some other non-interest economy, we will realize that they are actually doing well more than the interest-based economy. So an example of such a country is Malaysia. The growth rate is actually very exponential. And today, Malaysia's government, Malaysia economy is being run on more than 99%. I don't want to say, more than 99% non-interest, right? Compared to so many other interest-based economy, which in fact the biggest country with the largest economy in the world is actually not good enough, right? So while we complain in Nigeria, people over there who are citizens are also complaining because over $30 trillion debt. So look at the second part of it, which is algoro, which is uncertainty, right? So a lot of people speculate on the FX. And today I can tell you that based on reports, FX speculations is actually one of the major things that is actually affecting our economy, especially related to the FX. So people speculate, and at the end of the day, not just speculations alone. And, when they speculate, they tend to, speculations is like forecasting, that, based on different factors, right? And it affects them, it affects the investors at the end of the day. And a lot of people have actually placed their money on, I'm expecting a very high return from FX, which has actually, made a lot of companies or individuals to collapse in that area. Gambling, the destroyer of the youth. A lot of women are even now going into gambling. A lot of young people are going into gambling. And when we look at gambling, does not just come as you are just placing your, it works with your mindset. It makes you addictive. Immediately you start, you just want to go in there and continue over time. There's a recent trending news a few days ago that a young man committed suicide because he placed a bet of 2.5 million naira and lost the whole of the money. His money and maybe from loan sharks or he borrowed it from somewhere. So, and this is just one of the reports that we saw online. We saw it because he actually made it out, before he killed himself. So the reality is that when we look at it on a moral ground, right, we realize that what the Sharia principle of the Bible principles of financing is actually telling us is that, it's trying to safeguard us, right? It's trying to set the moral standards of transacting with each other. Third one, I gave you money to transact for me, or maybe on a transaction. I'm buying an item from you. The Prophet Muhammad says that we must always ensure that we give a full measure, right, when we are transacting. And the moment, there's a misconduct in any of the transaction, though, so that transaction has become invalid when it comes to Sharia principle of transaction. So, and when you look at it very well, we're doing business together. I mean, we should have a level 100% transparency with each other. We should be, it's not as if I'm just giving you money to go and transact, and at the end of the day, you are asking me to bring a certain percentage, like, I'm asking you to bring a certain percentage instead of me giving you that money so that it can be equal, right? And we share profits, but I'm only placing the whole of the loss to you, right? When you look at it, there's no fairness in that. And these are some of the, things that Sharia financing is trying to, to let us to understand and to build a moral standard across all of our transactions.
Right. Talking about all of these factors that are, included in the non-interest space, non-interest finance space. I mean, there are definitely issues or, shortcomings around this, like you balancing the ethnical differences. I mean, okay, in all of this, there are considerations of religion and ethnicity and culture. Now, let's assume this is a Muslim and this is a non-Muslim. Some of these terminologies used in the non-interest finance space are Islamic words, or rather Arabic terms, derived terms. Now, how do you balance offering a service to two different people in this, in your journey so far? Talking about your journey.
Okay, there's what we call internalization, right? Also, we can also call it localization, right? So I tell people, when you want people to accept things, right, you say it in their language. Do you understand? So, for example, you want an old woman who doesn't understand English from anywhere to use an ATM, and you're saying it in all these big grammars. Imagine there's no security guide to support that person. Do you understand? In fact, a lot of people have lost their money in that process. Oh, say it in Yoruba. Ọmọ mi jọ̀wọ́ help me, bá mi wo ATM yìí. If it's an unscrupulous person, they might actually, say, okay, let me also do a transfer to my own personal account too, right? So, but just imagine that was actually translated to a Yoruba language for the woman or the Hausa or to the Igbo woman to easily go to the ATM and read it in Igbo or in Hausa or in Yoruba. That is localization, right? And that is actually going to speed adoption. So I would say, what is the meaning of halal, right? When we say halal, so in our own terms, halal in English means the right thing. In Greek, it means the right thing. In Roman, it means permissible, right? So in Hausa, in Yoruba, they all have the same meaning. What about, what about we are able to speak it in their own language, in the non-Muslim language, right? Why does it have to be Islamic? Fine, the reality is it started as Sharia financing, right?
Right.
But I believe that, when you look at some of the factors around, Islamization, right? It will call for a need, especially in this part of the world, right? In this our own part of the world, we are not in the Arabic country. So Arabic country, technically, any Arabian, even non-Muslim Arabian, will definitely understand what Sharia is. And you won't have to struggle to narrate what Sharia financing is to them. So it's very easier for them for adoption. It's not as if there are no Christians or other religions in Malaysia, right? And they're doing it. They have to adopt it. But this is a secular economy, right? We're different tribes. We're different. We have different mentalities. I believe there's a way I believe we need to speak it in the language they will best understand. And I can tell you today that, in fact, a lot of people who are benefiting from Sharia financing are even non-Muslim in Nigeria. Right. Some of the biggest banks we have in Nigeria who are non-interest have, a lot of the northern, eastern brothers and southern brothers on who are transacting heavily with them. At a point of time, they had the highest amount in these banks. So what are we saying, right? So the reality is two things. Number one, let's speak it in a language they understand. Number two is that let's create that values that will keep them that, oh, this Sharia financing, what, come and tell me about it, right? Let's provide that values to them. And that is what we're trying to do at Alal, that whatever, we're not just say we want to be in the market. If we want to be in the market, we will have been, but we want to be compliant when it comes to Sharia, want to be compliant when it comes to the regulatory, around us, want to compliance when it comes to security, want to ensure that everything is ticked, every box is checked and ticked to ensure that, oh, we're coming out and we can go and sleep and, operation is keeping well.
Right. So now let's move to digital age. I mean, the world is going global, hence the need for digital, movement and all of that. So how does your digital bank ensure or foster financial inclusion, especially in this part of the world? How does your digital bank ensure financial inclusion, having Sharia compliant, products in line? How do you do that?
So let me flash back to when we first started. At that time, our product is actually focused to people at the local markets. Yaloja, Maloja. In fact, we have a lot of northern brothers as part of our customers. So the real fact is that it was never going to be easy, right? So, but then we just had to try. So when we launched at that time, I can tell you that the highest challenge we had was actually even from the Muslims. So, but I mean, in terms of acceptability, do you understand? So at the point of time, we had to sit down, re-strategize, and say, okay, well, let's go in with much more values, right? There are things, there are ways to actually go around people to accepting you. And the challenge at that particular point of time was because a lot of people, right, have committed atrocities with these local market people. So it was actually very difficult for them. But the time when we launched online, right? So we we had a very massive turnout, right? And in the span of 7 months, we have more than 30,000 downloads of our products. So comparison, right, is that when we first launched, then there was very less acceptance, right? But we sat back and say, okay, we have to fine tune our product in able to fit into the existing traditional method, right? That's a real fact. So I'm saying this because the segment, the market segment is actually different. You have to get in with the grassroots and then the digital age. Do you understand? You have to balance your product in between both of them. So we focused on them separately. Then we also focused on digital. So I say we had a very massive turnout without even spending much on on marketing.
Right. You told me earlier that your bank has been on hold because you're trying to strategize and see how you can serve the people better. So please just give us an insight on this transformative journey. Let's round it up with that.
Okay. So at the point of time that we first launched, it wasn't really a digital bank, but that was actually our end goal. That was our intention. So it was more of us trying to test the water. So to understand if people are actually going to buy into what we're trying to do, right? And that was how we say in span of 7 months, we had over 30,000 downloads of our products. According to our SEO, we got a lot of hits from the UK, from the US, asking us about our land loans and all like that. And in fact, in neighboring countries like Kenya, Uganda, and Nigerians too. So every day I can tell you that, from our website, there's a button, a WhatsApp button, and where you click and say, I want to learn more about halal. So you see that often, maybe let's say in every 20 minutes. And in recent time, we've seen a lot of people reaching out to us that we wanted, when is this going to come out? So the real fact is that it was a very tedious experience, right? Trying to push out a product and then trying to rebuild from ground up because we realized a few things. We used to say our core value is inclusivity. One of our core values is inclusivity. That is building products that brings everybody together. And that's why our tagline is a bank for everyone. So we are building a bank for everyone, regardless of your tribe, your religion, your ethics, So we're building something that is going to bring everybody together, and ensuring that, there's no bias when it comes to operations or we're giving out. So, and some of the things we also understand is that we have to build value for people, right? So that is why we are a little bit of patient. We are extremely patient, honestly speaking. So because getting on regulations, right, integrating with the necessary stakeholders, from last year to this time, we're staying on it. So, but the old journey in that first launch was a very beautiful one. It was challenging, right? So it was more of like a learning phase for us. So we've taken all of those learnings, right? And today we've integrated them in our product, in our operation. So we're also building the most ethical standard in finance.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. That was a really interesting conversation. It was. I mean, I am inspired. I I hope viewers out there too are inspired, and you've gotten just a bit of knowledge, or more than to dive or delve into this non-interest finance space. Thank you.
So one more word I have to say is that Allah never promised that it was going to be easy, right? He says after the difficulty, ease will come. Thank
Right.
you.
Indeed, after every difficulty, there is ease. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. That was a beautiful discussion with Ibrahim. I mean, I am indeed inspired. There are definitely things you put yourself into, and then it just gets interesting and interesting at the end of the day that you want to make it better. Well, that was it on Islamic Finance Weekly, and I hope you keep it to date with us next week on the program. Follow us on all our social media platforms and subscribe to our channel. And thank you for watching. I am Rahma Say Muhammad.